He introduced a lot of people to the idea of the creative class. Richard Florida on Detroit, the pandemic, and the impact of the so-called Bobos on America. And after sharing the stage with Mayor Duggan on Mackinac, our first conversation with the city's new Planning and Development Director, Antoine Bryant. Today is Sunday, September 26, 2021, and this is Flashpoint. Hi, welcome to Flashpoint. We have arrived at autumn, which comes packed with a lot of implications. For starters, the fiscal year begins this coming Friday, and against the tide of nasty partisanship, we actually got a budget agreement in Lansing. The autumn also means the approach of election season, though at the moment it appears we will not be getting a mayoral debate. Mayor Duggan is refusing to face off with the challenger Anthony Adams, though rest assured I'll be inviting both candidates to appear here. Autumn also means the arrival of flu season, and that has health experts concerned this year. The COVID pandemic doesn't exactly need a flu chaser. But this morning, we're going to borrow a few pages from the Mackinac Policy Conference, which took place this week up at the Grand Hotel. It was the first real introduction for many to Detroit's new Planning and Development Director. Antoine Bryant grew up in the projects of Brooklyn and comes here via Texas, but says he has long had an eye on Detroit. We will talk to him about his plans for the city. But also today, the keynote speaker from the conference, urbanist Richard Florida. It's been nearly 2 decades since he published The Rise of the Creative Class. He has a lot of thoughts about what's happening in the city of Detroit. He also has some fresh thoughts on that group of Bobos, the bohemian bourgeoisie. Have they been good or bad for America? It's all today on Flashpoint.
Well, it was about 20 years ago that urbanist Richard Florida had a lot of city planners and community developers talking about the creative class with his book, The Rise of the Creative Class. A lot's obviously happened since then, and he's back at the Mackinac Policy Conference this past week, giving the keynote address on Wednesday to talk about his views on the city of Detroit. And it's very good to have Richard Florida back with us again on Flashpoint. Richard, I so appreciate your time.
It's great to be with you. It's great to be in Mackinac, and my kids have traveled with me. All their families in greater Detroit, so I'm here, but they're in the Detroit suburbs as we talk.
I was going to say, you've got more than a passing interest in Detroit as a city. Your wife, Ron, is originally from Detroit, and so this is an area you know pretty well. And before we get to your message to the conference and your reflections on what's happening in Detroit, I want to talk more broadly about what COVID has done to our cities. We've hosted a lot of conversations on this program of guys who, and men and women who aren't so sure right now that cities are going to bounce back in the way that we've always expected them to, because why would I spend so much money on downtown office space if I've got employees who not only don't have to work in person, but a lot of them no longer want to?
Well, this is what I've spent my past 18, 20 months doing. I had no ideas. I'm nearly 40 years into a career as an urbanist. Never once confronted in my studies, in my teaching, in my research, pandemics. My parents were young kids during the Spanish flu, never mentioned it. So I had no idea. So I really went back and did a deep dive. And one thing I think is that it's clear to me, people were talking about the urban exodus, everyone's leaving cities are dead. I wrote a piece, for City Lab back in April of last year and said, no, cities are not dead. The history of pandemics show that cities come back because young people come. Families leave, and families will continue to leave cities, as they have in America for the past 50 years. Cities will come back because young people are already coming back. They're coming back to Chicago, New York, they're coming back to Detroit. The office market is really interesting because this shift to remote work is a big deal. I've studied the future of work for most of my career. It's the biggest shift I've ever seen. Before the pandemic, less than 5% of work days were completed remotely. Now more than 20% of remote work days after the pandemic will be completed remotely. Look, that means that 80% of us 80% of the time, 80% of us are going to go to work. But 20% is a big number. So I think for cities, now one of the great things about downtown Detroit is it really came roar. If you had asked me 20 years ago, could this happen? I would have said, no way. It's come roaring back. It's a place with great restaurants, great workspaces. I think that we have to think of cities not so much as places of living and working in the downtown core. They're places to connect, to come together. And I think the remaking of cities, including the downtown central business district in Detroit, has to be more about connection spaces, meeting spaces, convening spaces, restaurants and cafes where people can get together. And then I think the city will have a fine future.
I really like the idea of thinking about the roaring 20s, which came along after the Spanish flu pandemic. But I think there's two key differences. Number one is our ability to work from home has changed. Working from home in 1921 really was only meant a cottage industry. The other thing that's different is our political nature and our divides in America right now, which I think are going to complicate a lot of things. And maybe work is one of them too.
So I think, you've got to think about Greater Detroit as a metropolitan region with young people in the center core and who are flocking in, not just from the Detroit suburbs. I've looked at the data for the speech I gave up here the other day in Mackinac, from Indianapolis, from Buffalo, from Rochester, from smaller Michigan towns. I mean, yeah, Detroit still loses kids to New York and Chicago, but who doesn't? Boston loses kids to New York and Chicago. And by the way, Devin, here's a statistic for folks. Of all the metropolitan regions in the country, Greater Detroit has one of the highest retention rates of college grads. From all 2 and 4-year institutions, it's 77%. From four-year institutions, it's 70%. Now, yes, some kids from the University of Michigan who came in from New Jersey or New York or wherever, LA, move out. But only New York and Southern California have higher rates of retention of kids than Detroit. So you've been hanging on. You talk about brain drain. You've been hanging on to talent. A lot of that talent moves downtown. I think the big challenge downtown is going to be to offices. And what we're finding is that there's a group of people like me who like to work from home. And they're going to work from home a few days a week, maybe 4 days a week. But when they come downtown, they're going to look for something to do. And let me tell you a story. I was in New York City a couple of months ago in July. It had less than 20% office occupancy. But when you went into Midtown at about 4:30 in the afternoon, there were lineups in front of every restaurant. People dressed with a business suit, a casual shirt, a woman in a nice dress. They were all workers who were not coming to work in the office. They were coming to meet with colleagues in a restaurant or a cafe or for drinks. We as a species have a need to connect. I think that's the future of cities. And without that center core in Detroit, it's not going to be able to deliver that.
Yeah, fascinating. I'm curious about your new and the way that you've self-examined what the creative class has wrought in America. A couple of years ago, you wrote sort of a follow-up to The Rise of the Creative Class, which was the new urban crisis. And you kind of looked around and saw that a number of cities had not developed maybe in a healthy way. And more recently, David Brooks, who wrote Bobo's in Paradise back about 20 years ago, he wrote a rather withering look back at that sort of idea of the creative class. And I want to quote him directly here. The Bobos have coalesced into an insular, intermarrying Brahmin elite that dominates culture, media, education, and tech. Worse, those of us in this class have had a hard time admitting our power, much less using it responsibly. The idea that the creative class, the Bobos, have helped create this massive division that we now have in America, politically and economically.
100%. I mean, the final chapter of my book, written in the year 2002, was The Creative Class Grows Up, ? And in that chapter, I argued if the creative class, this privileged class, the third of the workforce who does research, technology, innovation, knowledge work, management, finance, medicine, who are the privileged third, if they did not wake up and take their role seriously and reach out to the working classes, we would live in a highly divided society. I published a follow-on article in 2003 on the gross inequality that was being created by the clustering and congregation of this class in places like San Francisco or New York or Los Angeles or Boston. There's no new news here. This has been the way we've been developing since the year 2000. And it's getting worse and worse. We have a highly divided society. We use the monikers red and blue, but when you look at blue correlates at a high level with people who do creative class work, have college degrees, have advanced degrees, and red correlates with people like my dad, 7th grade educated factory workers or people who work in a service industry. And that goes for vaccination. We just did an analysis of vaccination rates. Creative class, highly vaccinated, highly educated people. Highly vaccinated, less well-educated people, much lower levels of vaccination. That is the nature of the divide. What I think I got wrong. Look, I get a lot of things wrong. We all get, even the smartest people get a lot of things, get more things wrong than right.
Sure.
What I got wrong was I underestimated how ferocious this urban revival would be. When writing in 2002, if I had said my hometown then of Pittsburgh or Detroit would come back and be interesting places filled with restaurants where people would go for the weekend. People would be moving from New York or San Francisco to Pittsburgh or Detroit for more affordable living. You would have co-working spaces. You would have excitement. People would have said I was completely bananas. So I think what I missed and what David Brooks missed was how much this creative class was hungering for a new lifestyle. The big shift I see now, which I find fascinating talking to you from Northern Michigan, is the creative class, which is in part very urban, not so suburban. They kind of eschewed the traditional suburb. This class has turned into a lover of wonderful rural areas. If you ask me what's really changed in the past 5 years, it's the movement of the creatives from Brooklyn to the Hudson Valley river towns of New York. I was up in Traverse City in June, visiting some friends. I met so many creative class types. Yes, some of them were from Detroit. More of them were from Chicago. And there was a gazillion of them from Brooklyn. The Traverse City phenomenon, the Hudson Valley phenomenon, the Bozeman, Montana phenomenon, the creative class looking for this new way of rural life, I think is a big new thing that we got to pay attention to.
Stunning. Lastly, Richard, do you see much of a prescriptive, the division and the concentration of the haves and the have-nots, the concentration of wealth in the hands of so few seems deeply perilous to so many. Do you see a prescription for it?
Well, that's where we have the roaring 2020s. We have not seen this level of gross inequality since the 1920s. And, when I watch, and people wrote scathing critiques of the Met Gala in New York, when I watch those things, I think about the Great Gatsby, or I think about Marie Antoinette. I think about the privileged few, regardless of party, some Republican like Donald Trump and Mar-a-Lago, some progressive people on the left in the Met Gala. Boy, that really galls people. It's a gauche display. And yeah, I think this is the big issue. And what I would say, Devin, it's not just economic inequality. I think economic inequality, the gap between the super rich and the rest of us, is part of it. What I would say it's geographic inequality. The fact that we occupy completely separate worlds. My dad, with a 7th grade education, lived next door to my Uncle Walter, who was a high executive of Colgate-Palmolive. My world include working class people and executive level people, white collar and blue collar. Those two worlds don't occupy the same planet. And I think that's the biggest challenge our nation faces. Fortunately, and here's one of the things I'll say about metropolitan Detroit. My whole extended family lives in metropolitan Detroit. We have Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and Joe Biden supporters and Donald Trump and Republican supporters. And almost every week at the dinner table or on a family chat, we can have a great open-minded discussion. And I think that's the beauty of a place like metropolitan Detroit. Families have to live together, communities have to bond together. And I think that's the way we get out of it. We have an open, honest conversation as a community, and I think we can do it.
Got to find a way to mingle. Couldn't say it better. Richard Florida joining us from the Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island. Richard, it's great to have you back on the program again. Hopefully not such a long duration between appearances again.
And hopefully we get to see each other in person before too long. It'd be great to see you again, Devin.
Thanks so much. We'll take a quick break. Back with more on Flashpoint right after this.
Italian design leather is now on sale at Gorman's. Save 40 to 50% off on the sleek contemporary styling of Natuzzi editions. Choose from an endless array of colors and seating designs, now on sale exclusively at Gorman's.
Hello, I'm Tillman Fertitta, owner of the Golden Nugget Casinos, and I've got some big news. Drum roll, please. I'm pleased to announce our live dealer is now available in Michigan.
We're redefining the online gaming experience with Golden Nugget Online Live Dealer.
All from the convenience of your phone at goldennuggetcasino.com.
Sign up now and we'll match your first deposit up to $1,000. Visit goldennuggetcasino.com.
It's all around you, keeping up with you on your journey, working with providers to keep you healthy, and adding value to your life. HAP is here, and we've been right here all along. Wherever life takes you, see how HAP is here for you.
Save 50% off all Lexington furnishings at Gorman's. Pure style has never been more affordable. Gorman's is offering factory direct savings of 50% off the unequal styling of Lexington this weekend at Gorman's.
So you felt the temperature change, but hopefully you have checked your furnace, because a shortage of heating and cooling workers means that if you need a fix, it could take a while. Monday morning at 6:30, see how the shortage is affecting local HVAC companies.
If you're in the skilled trades, you're hit by the shortage of skilled workers.
Plus,
why one company took the skilled trade classroom and moved it into their own building.
So they take the theory and apply it to practical, the whole package.
Where are the workers? Monday on Local 4 News Today.
City of Detroit has a new planning and development director. Antoine Bryant arrived this summer and had a bit of a coming out party on Mackinac Island this past week. And this morning, it's our first chance to have a conversation with a man who has a huge but potentially transformative challenge in front of him. Antoine Bryant, it's great to have you on Flashpoint, and a belated welcome to Detroit.
Oh, thank you for that. I greatly appreciate the opportunity, and I'm glad to be here.
Well, in fact, let's start with the gap between what you expected to see in Detroit, because you said this past week that Detroit's been on your radar for some time. The gap between what you expected to see and what you actually found when you arrived.
Well, I don't know if it necessarily was a gap. I knew coming in that there would be some of the challenges that we are familiar with as far as repopulating the area, as far as bringing in more retail and bringing in, quite frankly, more residents to the area. What has been exciting and what, quite frankly, sealed the deal to have me come was the collection of support by the private sector, by the philanthropic sector, as well as the resources being made available at the federal and state levels. And so it's not often that you get a collection of all three of those disciplines to come together for the improvement of a municipality. And so it's just an incredibly exciting time to be here in Detroit.
It is. I'm wondering, though, what you think the last year and a half, the pandemic has done. I think a lot of people felt like we pretty much had a foot on the accelerator there, and then ran into, obviously, as many municipalities did across the country, a roadblock that we weren't anticipating and had never had any experience with before in trying to navigate. What has that done to Detroit's progress, do you think?
I think it's slowed it down. I won't say it stopped it, but it definitely has slowed it down. Many of the industries that took a hit during the pandemic are ones that were still in a kind of a growth mode in Detroit, right? So hospitality, as far as tourism, those things really affected a lot of cities, probably harsher than they affected the Detroit market, because those were things that were still building up. Right, so we didn't have as much of a jarring hit as, say, an Orlando or as a Las Vegas, if you will, as a Miami. Right, those are ones that really were, they took a punch. I think we were still kind of in a growth and assessment mode, so there are some challenges there. I think obviously there's been a shift tremendously in office workers and in downtown presence, but again, you saw that dramatic shift in cities all across the country, and I think that's an opportunity that was a growth opportunity for us, and we're beginning to come out of it. And as it's probably been talked about on this show and many others, what's been fascinating is how real estate appreciation has been a real thing here in Detroit. Just in the rising cost and rising availability of housing, both for single family and for multifamily, has actually been going up in the last several months, which has not been something in all parts of the country. Which, as
the mayor pointed out last week, means that people finally feel the freedom and the latitude to improve on their properties because they feel like, it's actually makes financial sense. I imagine it took you no time at all to find that Detroit has this divide that many cities have, where some people fear that there's a big gap between the worries and concern about what's going on downtown and the worries and concern about what's going on in the neighborhood. And Detroit, with its 137 square miles, is a city of more than 200 neighborhoods. Do these things have to move separately, or are they all of a piece to you?
I think ideally they're all of a piece, right? Detroit is most assuredly a city of neighborhoods, and that part has become even more and more clear in the several weeks, now 2 full months that I've been here. However, we don't want it to be are bifurcated, right? We don't want it to seem as a situation where the downtown is one and separate from the city of Detroit, but that downtown is still one that is part and parcel of the entire city and should be one where all of our residents feel attracted to and feel comfortable as having a part of their ecosystem, as part of their work, live, and play life cycle. And so, however, much of downtown, like in many cities, it's going to redevelop and continue to develop in of itself because of market forces. And so one of the things that we've talked about extensively in planning development is how do we ensure that we are not only developing in our neighborhoods, but quite frankly, even accelerating development in our neighborhoods, both equitably and through resident-led engagement.
I mentioned earlier you're a native of Brooklyn, and you spent a lot of time in Houston. You've been around big cities that have worries about crime. We've watched crime jump up in Detroit, as it has in many other cities over the last year. I'm curious as to whether you feel like your job toward development is an answer toward helping address crime problems, or is it something that we've got to get crime handled before you can really do your work in development and planning?
No, that's a great question. I don't think they're sequential. I think they can run in concert with one another. I will never draw a correlation between development in and of itself and crime, or even the perception of crime. I think it's something that we will continue to focus on from a development standpoint. We're going to keep moving forward. I think that crime is going down. I sit in meetings with the mayor on a weekly basis, and we're looking at the crime statistics. They are trending downward. And it is reflective more of a national trend and not just regional or even local. So I am pleased to see that things are going down slowly but surely. But that in mind, I think it's something that we will stay focused on development. And hopefully, when we're able to have a stronger city physically as well as socially, the determinants that lead to criminal activity will begin to continue to trend downward as well.
Yeah. I'd like to use Brooklyn a little bit, and your thoughts on Brooklyn as an example here. I think to city planners and community leaders, Brooklyn is both a success story for the way a city can come back and also a cautionary tale when it comes to the idea of gentrification and some people being forced out of a place that they long believed was theirs. What's your outlook on what we should learn from the way that Brooklyn has progressed over the last couple of years? People love to use Brooklyn and Detroit kind of as in some ways corollaries.
That's interesting because when I first came to Detroit, and this is probably 15 years ago, it definitely reminded me of my hometown. Yeah. Much of it because of it's the people are real. The people are genuine, and their love for their city is palpable, right? I mean, that's honestly one of the three major things that really drew me to Detroit was that, Detroiters love Detroit, and they have every reason to do so. The distinction that I've grown, why I really am excited about Detroit, is I think we still have the opportunity for Detroit to be led by and driven by and owned by Detroiters. The fact that there's so much land that is available to Detroiters, and one of the things that our office is going to be focused on is having development and land be accessible to residents here that have been longtime residents. That's something that ship has sailed long ago in Brooklyn, right? Yeah. And that's part of the reason why that part grieves me, but Detroit really does hold the future in its hands in the residents. And so we can really make a tremendous nation-leading opportunity here of how a city can grow equitably, but also include the betterment of the lives of all of its residents, not just the top 10%.
I've only got about 45 seconds left, and that's unfair for the question that I'm going to end with here. But we remain one of the most segregated cities in America. And I'm wondering what your outlook is on that as you come to take on the challenges that you now see in front of you.
Wow. I think one of the best ways we can do that is we're going to continue to focus on amenities that are available to all. The Detroit Riverfront Conservancy is doing tremendous work of making that riverfront accessible to Detroiters of all backgrounds and of all socioeconomic levels. And I think the more that we focus on those cultural amenities, those recreational amenities, and business development opportunities for all Detroiters, that we will break down some of those barriers that exist.
Well, handling that in such a short amount of time certainly speaks to your television professionalism. We wish you all the luck in the world in this terribly important job you've got in front of you. And I hope we'll have you back on the program real soon, Antoine.
It would be my absolute pleasure, and I appreciate the opportunity.
You bet. Great to have you here. We'll take a quick break. We'll continue with more. This is Flashpoint on Local 4.
Play Michigan Lottery online with exclusive instant games like Queen of Diamonds and jackpot games that can reach $1 billion. Get 100% match on your first deposit plus free games. Sign up with promo code TV.
So play on Michigan, 'cause we all win.
The Capuchin Soup Kitchen needs your help. For more than 90 years, inspired by the example of St. Francis of Assisi, the Capuchin Soup Kitchen has been privileged to serve people facing challenging circumstances. Today, the Capuchin Soup Kitchen has evolved to include programs like the Rosa Parks Children's and Youth Program, helping our local children through art and tutoring. We can't do this work without your help. Be a friend to the Capuchin Soup Kitchen and pledge your support today.
Thank you for being a friend to the Capuchin Soup Kitchen.
From where I'm sitting, looks like you could use waterproof floors. Wow, and I thought I made a mess.
For waterproof flooring at a great price, go to Independent Carpet One. Here to floor you, and right now at Independent Carpet One, it's our waterproof flooring event. Save big and get special financing. Talk to one of our flooring experts today.
Broken spring? Give ASAP a ring. ASAP Garage Door Repair Systems of Michigan. Call 866-52-DOORS or online at michigangaragedoors.com.
Whether your accident's in Detroit or anywhere in Michigan, call me. I'll be right there.
Rhonda truly feels for the stories that we talk about. She truly has a compassion for the people that are here in the city of Detroit.
She cares about Detroit. Every story matters to her.
She truly is a professional.
Day in and day out, she brings her A game.
Rhonda's our moral compass. Imagine where we would be without her.
A true person, true to herself, true to her community, and that just screams at you in a good way, and you feel it whenever you see her on TV.
I think that's why people trust her.
And poof, just like that, we're out of time. If you missed anything on this or any other Flashpoint broadcast, just head to clickondetroit.com/Flashpoint. Thanks so much for being here. Meet the Press coming up next. Have a great week. We'll see you next time on Flashpoint.